So many faces, their stories and inspirational efforts. They filled our Wednesday nights at 10 on KSLA, life-saving heroics on the highway. Why we dance for a cure for cancer. So many young men and women overcoming incredible medical odds to succeed on the playing field and in life. Happy New Year to you. It's Doug Warner with KSLA News 12. Thanks for joining us for 2019, The Good Stuff. And we kick it off with an amazing story about a young man from a very small town of Florine down in Sabine Parish. He was determined to take center court with his twin brother despite a very alarming diagnosis at birth. This is Brentley's dream.
He's loved ball since he was a toddler, a baby. We bought him the little tacks and he would just stay and shoot.
They both have, really, Brentley and his identical twin brother, Bailey.
When we play as good as we're capable of playing, you'll hear no gripes out of me.
All the way up to their senior year on the Florine High Black Cats basketball team.
The other night when he was on the floor with Bailey, watching them play together really made me just think, what would it have been like?
Because until a little less than a month ago, unlike Bailey, Brentley had never dressed out for varsity, only as team manager.
Everybody pretty much treated me the same as the players.
All right, pick it up.
That changed just hours before their January 7th home game against top-ranked Simpson High School. Brentley shoots his parents, Scott and Melanie Miller, a quick text. He's suiting up.
I did receive a picture and Brentley's holding up a jersey.
Talk about your proud parent moment. You're looking at it, the faces of 18 years of proud and emotional moments. That began as one of the scariest moments
911, you name an emergency?
any parent could ever imagine.
Yes, I need ambulance.
I went into active labor at my home.
Yes, my wife just had a baby here in the van, and she's 27 weeks pregnant. Are you on the side of the road, or are you still traveling? I'm doing about 110 right now.
I just wanted to die. I was in so much pain, and I just kept thinking, I can't do this.
He's coming to Alexandria.
You can actually hear Melanie moaning in pain, Bradley in her arms, and Brentley yet to be delivered. But more concerning is what you don't hear.
Hello? His cell phone cut out, sir. Yes.
A baby crying.
I can hear her in the car yelling at that baby to breathe. Oh, my heart is hurting.
Bailey was the one that was touch and go.
Bailey, born at 2 pounds. His brother Brentley, 1 pound, 12 ounces. Doctors insistent Bailey was kept alive during that wild ride to the hospital.
That I couldn't breathe, and he breathed for me.
By his yet unborn brother, Brentley.
He never went without oxygen because his brother, and they were identical, was sending oxygen to him outside of the womb.
But soon after, Brentley began showing signs of developmental issues.
They did a scan of his brain, and he had, they called it like a bruise. I think it's called like leukomalacia.
The diagnosis, spastic depletion, cerebral palsy.
I hope any other kids that have a disability, don't stop working hard. They keep pushing every day.
Would ask him, when you going to put the walker down and walk? And he said, when I turn 7.
Yeah, he said, I'm going to walk when I'm 7.
And the day he turned 7, he put his walker down.
That's the God's honest truth.
And there he was, side by side with his brother, playing in the yard or on the basketball court, where he delivered his next miracle shot in the dark.
And he told me, Mama, one day my dream is to run out for the Black Cats. I'm going to run out for the Black Cats. And as a mom, I'm like, yes, son, you sure can. Of course, I walk out of the room and go squall to him. He's never going to be able to run out for the Black Cats.
Just thank you for giving Brentley the ability to play basketball, the sport he loves. Your holy precious name, we do pray. Amen.
Amen.
It's never a good idea to tell mom she's wrong.
Well, I kind of just sat back, and I just kind of waited for the moment.
Except when you're doing that one thing no one really thought you'd ever do.
I was trying to keep my camera still, but it was hard because Mama was crying because my baby was running out.
That night, January 7th, there was Brentley proudly donning number 31.
Brentley's not a child that expects everything to be handed to him. Brentley works really hard.
Coach Eddie Jones says Brentley earned the right to be in that uniform. So with the game sadly out of reach and 4 minutes left on the clock,
He pointed at Elijah and like told Elijah to do this right here. Like
He wanted to get out, man.
Brentley hit the floor with twin brother Bailey and his cousin Brennan. And with the fans on their feet, Brentley drives the lane.
all in my heart, man.
Pounding.
Pounding, yes, sir.
But you knew the kid who spent the last 17 plus years trying and trying again until he got it just right. Wasn't about to fade back into the shadows of the Florine bench.
Coaches do get emotional, have to wipe away a couple of tears.
You know that was a bad call.
Then just days later, and in the final seconds of a tough game against Zwolle, Brentley's number is called again.
It worked out. I mean, there was nothing planned, and it just worked out where you could be a part of helping a kid make his dreams come true.
A dream, Brentley says, is far from over.
Oh, no, I'm not done yet either.
Good. Proud of you, baby.
You know, a mother will do just about anything to help her kids, especially if her son is diagnosed with brain cancer, especially if he lives halfway across the country. Here's a mother's prescription for cancer.
I see the baby who smelled like warm buttered toast when he was curled up in my arms those first few months of life.
Vanna Weiss's words read like a timeline of her love.
He's got the biggest smile in the world. He's always laughing.
A love for her son Ethan, the Caddo Magnet grad, now 30 years old, living in California.
When I said in the first line, he will make you laugh so hard wine shoots out your nose, it has always been him. He is just a sparkler.
Now married and a father himself, this past October, Ethan's sparkle came under attack.
One weekend, he'd been having some headaches, but not, super bad.
And a couple of trips to the doctor later.
I spent the first couple of months pretending, and I still do sometimes, pretending it's not real.
But brain cancer is real. And so are the moving words by this former teacher
I've written in all of these,
and writer, heartfelt memories crafted just a couple of Fridays ago.
I see the little one who was so convinced he could fly in his Peter Pan costume that before I could stop him, he jumped in the air with such trust, such innocence, that for a moment I truly believed he would soar over my head.
Vanna made a post on a fundraiser page for the National Brain Tumor Society for its upcoming West Coast Walk, the closest one to her son, in Portland, Oregon.
My son has brain cancer. Most days, it is easier to imagine it is happening to someone else, but it isn't.
But not long after finishing off her 20-paragraph personal prescription for a mother's heartbreak,
it was just really cathartic. It was very good for me to get it out.
something happened. Something crazy kind of happened.
So over the weekend, I was getting lots of emails about donations.
I tracked down Tyler Pagel with the Brain Tumor Society West Coast office.
But I kept getting these emails. And
with every walk donation that comes in, Tyler,
my phone would keep beeping.
And Vanna's emails kept.
Boop.
I just kept checking, and they kept coming.
Boop.
$2,000 donations.
Boop, 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 boop.
$5,000 donations.
Oh my gosh!
And so I went to find out, what group of people had done that, and it turned out it was just one.
He called me Monday morning after I posted it, and he was like, "Is this Vanna?" It is. He goes, "Oh my gosh, I know. I don't know what happened."
But the fundraising had barely hit its stride. Tuesday, then Wednesday, then Thursday, the clicks kept clicking, and the donations kept coming.
It is happening to him. It is happening to his wife, to his baby, to his father, to his sister. It is happening to me, and we need help.
Not only is she the top fundraiser this year, but she'll end up being the top fundraiser in the history of the Northwest Brain Tumor Walks.
You think? When you've raised nearly half of this walk's $140,000 goal by yourself, approaching $60,000 and counting.
I am aware, yes.
Very, very impressed with what my mom has put together. It's really touching and incredible.
That's Ethan on a break from chemo and radiation, on vacation, mind you, in Sweden, to see the Northern Lights.
I've always wanted to cross off my bucket list. It was absolutely incredible.
And even in the midst of a real-life fight for his life.
Honestly, in terms of the fundraiser, I didn't do much myself other than get a brain tumor.
Vonna is reminded of her little boy. The good times.
That's sort of how we always handle everything, is just through humor. So
To now the very bad, and her prescription for cancer.
I see the child I promise to always keep safe.
This next story is about a young man I knew very well, 26-year-old Trey Auld. He was a paramedic. He was killed in a helicopter crash while on a medical call in Arkansas back in 2017. His loss was mourned by so many, but at the same time, his life is being celebrated by doing unto others as Trey would have done to so many others. Here's Giving It Your All.
So we have Give It Your All, Going All Out.
Give us all the beads.
For 26 years, Trey Auld never missed a Mardi Gras or the parades.
We were there at the very first Gemini parade that rolled across the bridge in 1990. I was pregnant with Trey at the time. But
it counts.
Yes, it counts.
Even now, nearly a year and a half after his death.
I compare the life he lived in 26 years, 2 months, and 10 days to trying to hang on to the tail of a comet.
Each one of us handles the grief of losing a loved one in our own way. I guess you can say for the Auld family, Trey's parents, John and Kim.
It's excruciating. So nobody could have prepared me for it.
And siblings Tyler and Tiffany. Trey laid out a path for them to deal with that pain.
We raised our boys and Tiffany with a sense of service. We gave them a lot, and we expected them to give back a lot.
Something Trey clearly took to heart. For anyone on the outside looking in,
this is his first real job. He started off being a volunteer in Keithville.
At 17, Trey first worked as a volunteer firefighter in Caddo Parish, then as a firefighter paramedic in Bossier Parish, before landing his childhood dream job, flying around in a sexy jumpsuit, saving people's lives. The same kind of sexy Trey would always kiddingly project out in personality and with those Mardi Gras signs.
He had the same sign for every parade. And he held that sign in a very gentlemanly way and blew kisses to everyone.
It was likely just a way of disguising what was really on the inside if you looked further in.
It was pretty awesome to run into people that he had done something for, especially now, since the crash, people have approached me.
The punk rock Trey, who spent years volunteering feeding the homeless. Ninja Turtle Trey, who volunteered at hurricane shelters. Or Cat in the Hat Trey, who on his small first responder salary, one day just bought a buggy of groceries for someone just because.
It's almost too vast to single out one thing.
Big Spence, this is a Sandman. Who's your favorite uncle? Over. Copy that.
You see, the world's greatest uncle, Trey, had been flying under the radar, giving it all he had for total strangers for years, before he ever started flying to save the lives of total strangers.
I've got Trey with me today.
His family and a growing number of first responder friends still gather at parades in true Trey fashion, and I mean fashion.
So we get to live his life out every year, and there's nothing that can match that joy for us.
They do it in honor of the one-time crew of Centaur Duke of Fun, and to surround Trey's family with much-needed love.
It really warms my heart to see that other people care, and other people see what we're doing, other people see how we're celebrating his life and, his legacy, and we're carrying it on, and it's great. It feels really good.
It's a growing band of brothers and sisters, and their brand new nonprofit, Give It Your All, that's donated 500 pounds of goods to a food pantry, backpacks loaded with food and supplies for local students, and toys during Christmas.
Yes!
And cases of water for thirsty firefighters.
God has padded our fall and surrounded us with so many wonderful people.
Dozens who are now giving it their all. A continued legacy in honor of that kid who gave his life living out his dream of helping others.
That's my focus with God, is thanking Him for the 26 years I got of holding on to the tail of the comet.
A love of life that was immeasurable because Trey loved his life, your life, and every other life around him.
Every day I think about how lucky I am to have a mother like you. I was lucky, for sure.
If you believe that sometimes people are put in your path for a reason, then life-saving catch certainly won't sound fishy to you. We're off to Oklahoma for this next good stuff. Just a stone's throw from all that spring break traffic in Hochatown, Oklahoma.
There she goes.
Where the original town site sits far beneath man-made Broken Bow Lake, lives a fishing tale about one guy.
It's where I've spent the better part of my life.
Who nearly died living through it.
The good Lord was looking over me that day.
That day, 4 years ago, was the first day of real hope in what had been a disastrous spring out at Beaver's Bend. After massive flooding brought Bryce Archie's Broken Bow Lake Guide service to a grinding halt, finally, a boat ramp opens to the public.
I had trips still coming up, so I had to go look.
Even life off the flooded waters had pressed Bryce and his wife, Sasha, to their emotional limits those first few months of 2015. Their then 5-year-old son, Zane, suffered through a series of seizures and trips to the hospital. And soon after, they lost Sasha's mother, Janice, to cancer.
My mother-in-law passed away on June 5th with an 8-year battle of breast and brain cancer.
So understandably, getting back on this lake that early June morning was as much therapeutic as it was financially essential for Bryce and his guide service.
Oh, he had to bring his own rod.
And no better way to feel normal again.
For the last 15 or so years, we fished together 15 or 20 times a year.
You didn't trust my rod and reel?
I just brought one extra.
Than hitting the water with longtime family friend Dr. Jim Ford.
Lunch on who catches the first fish.
Normal for these two, of course. Usually means a day full of fishing bets and snarky remarks.
All right, age 4 beauty.
But Bryce admits, that day he offered little to no competition for Jim.
Stopped a couple of places to fish, and he wasn't fishing. So one time I turned, and he was kind of bent over at the front. And I said, what's going on?
Winning that day's fishing bet was suddenly the least of Jim's concerns, who at that time served as the director of the ER at a hospital a couple of hours away.
I'd been having some symptoms, and I just kept it to myself.
The first thing I thought was if he was having trouble with his hernia again.
And for all the guys out there, if you've ever had a physical, there is only one good way to check.
He did an examination right there.
Right there in the middle of that lake.
He dropped his pants up there on the front of the boat.
It may not have been real organized, but I was looking around too.
For you to ask him to do that in the middle of the lake, you had to be a little concerned.
I was concerned.
I was literally in good hands, I guess you could say.
Yet Dr. Ford's bow of the boat examination turned up empty-handed.
Never done it in a boat.
Okay. But a lack of answers was even more concerning, as Bryce's pain only worsened.
I told him to call his wife there and meet us at the boat ramp.
Bryce was rushed to the ER, and it wasn't long before doctors had initial answers to his painful mystery.
He had a ruptured diverticulum, so probably going to have surgery. He said, but something else showed up on the scan as well. They're not sure what it is.
That something was a large mass on his colon.
It's when they told me that I had cancer, and the gasp that my wife took.
And I went, and I just got silent, because that's the last thing I expected.
It wasn't always smooth sailing back onto these waters, but he made it. Bryce is now in remission, and he feels it's because of that first day back on the water in 2015 on a flooded lake that reopened just hours before Bryce's organs started shutting down.
I'm very happy to have him back.
A day fishing with a friend. There's something to be said for what happened on that day on this lake.
I wouldn't argue that.
Who made the absolute biggest catch in their 15 years of fishing together.
I'm here because everything lined up, and then that was, I believe, the good Lord lined it up.
You know, in that same vein, I feel like there were people put in my path. Happens all the time, it feels like. Well, I went to check on a tornado path earlier this year, and that's where I found 3 little people, the EF triplets.
This tornado warning has just been issued for an area northeast of Benton.
About the time we first learned a tornado could be on the ground along this stretch of Butler Hill Road.
To imagine yourself being in it and being thankful you're not.
Lacey Grubbs had no idea her family's home was being destroyed. Her family of 8, yes, all 8, were away from home.
I don't even know how to describe the emotions, but then you think about all the neighbors who were through that.
1 minute, forced to accept.
It was, sitting halfway in the window.
You may never live in your home of 8 years ever again.
This is like my backbone here.
But then the next, hope is slowly restored.
Childcare, watching the kids has been rather difficult. We've had a lot of support and help through the church, Plain Dealing Church of Christ.
We just help one another. If I needed help, I'd expect somebody to help me.
Whether it's fellow church members, family,
it's a mess,
or complete strangers, Lacey says many have stepped up to help. Even their realtor.
Anybody want to buy the home?
Yeah, they were trying to sell.
So why'd you take the sign out of the yard?
I just thought, what's the point?
The price was even just reduced. That was until the tornado reduced it even more.
She's been a great help as well. She's actually watched the kids one evening.
What is that?
The camera, wait a minute.
These kids, 4-year-old triplets.
The tree broke their house. And it broke their window.
Rule.
Nope.
Ava.
You broke the window.
And Finley, the youngest of Lacey and Jason's 6 kids.
Hey.
Even though they didn't experience it firsthand, I was worried that this being their first home, that they would be heartbroken and torn and maybe even traumatized in thinking, this happened to our house.
Mom says the only thing traumatizing for these 3 so far.
I want to get outside.
I'd rather you stay inside for right now.
Not being able to run willy-nilly outside.
It just amazes me. I guess you can uproot a pine tree too.
The Grubbs' backyard, now a 5-star adventure land in the eyes of this trio.
Not yet.
But even for these master negotiators, Mom has been one tough cookie to crack. The kids' makeshift playroom.
There's him right there.
That's me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's my card.
A safe haven of sorts for the triplets.
Where's the drags at?
While the adults manage the sudden shutdown of their country playland.
I see another game.
Where?
Right there.
Get it.
Oh, they've seized opportunities, slipping out of confinement to help pack for the unexpected move.
Those cards in there.
Thank you.
Woohoo!
Or when nature calls.
Mommy, I need to go poo-poo.
Don't put that on there, please.
In the middle of nature with no electricity or running water.
I mean, if you can't laugh about it, then, what else?
My heart doesn't stop flowing.
Now, sure, Lacey could have found a relative somewhere who wasn't already out here helping just to watch the kids.
Ava, who wears her heart on her shoulders and emotions on her shoulders like I do, she came the closest to being teared up and wanting to cry about it.
Some relative, hours away.
Rule just kept saying, this is just damage.
When you know you'd rather be a lot closer to your kids at a time like this. Your kids who are doing as much for you as you're doing for them.
I guess it reminds me that kids are resilient and they don't quite, get tore down too much.
There he is.
As timely as a babysitter or a kid-loving realtor would be right about now.
I'm being careful.
You're being careful? Okay.
Lacey allowed the doors of freedom to swing open. This time, under the watchful eye of the kid's newfound friend.
Come on.
If you sit there and worry about all those negative things, I mean, it's just going to bring you down even further. I've just always had that faith that God's going to take care of me.
All right, we're going for the People in Your Path trifecta. We're talking about a Shreveport lady who feels like there was a special someone put in her path in a parking lot here in Shreveport just moments after she lost just about everything of value that she owned. It's her parking lot angel. It can happen anywhere, in any town, and in any part of town.
Thank you.
Even in the friendliest parking lot outside one of the more popular grocery stores in all of Shreveport.
Sure appreciate you.
Anytime.
26-year-old Jawan Scott loves his job at the Brookshires on Line Avenue. And if he's ever carried your groceries out to the car, then you know. Juwan is also a park counselor.
You did sacrifice your hard work and money for it, right? Taking care of customers to see if they have a pleasant day.
And now it would seem full-time neighborhood watch. The shirt was given to him by a customer.
Appreciate what you did. You take care of yourself here.
Others, a handshake for what Juwan did last Thursday while walking his beat, so to speak, delivering groceries to a car in front of Brookshire's.
I was talking to the customer and making sure she feels okay.
When Juwan says he noticed this man, 42-year-old Jared Freeman, grab a purse from someone's shopping cart and take off running through the parking lot.
If something's not right, I have to go and check it out what's going on.
But this is Juwan's version of checking it out. He took off in a full sprint, weaving through parked cars and traffic.
Then we're running down here.
Chasing Freeman down to this fence, Freeman jumped over while Juwan ran around, caught up with, and began fighting with the accused purse snatcher.
Why did you chase that guy? My instinct behavior always acts differently.
An instinct that left him with a couple of kicks and punches to the head and body, but also with that purse.
She needed somebody to stand up for her, and you did.
Yep.
Hey, how you doing?
And that somebody is Jason's deli employee, Crystal Cray.
Oh my gosh, you raised an amazing child. God bless you guys.
Who just had to meet the mother of her parking lot hero. Juwan didn't know it at the time, that he was chasing down much more than just some customer's purse. Crystal had just started at Jason's not long ago, walking to work most days, hitching rides on others. And that new job is just a couple of doors down from Brookshire's.
And it was so awesome to go cash my first paycheck. You know, like, my life has changed tremendously.
According to Crystal, she was later shown surveillance video from inside the store, which showed Freeman watching her cash that paycheck at the service desk, then following her into the parking lot.
I want you to know right now, like, he was right over there putting groceries in somebody's car, and he didn't even hesitate. Like, he just took off.
And when Juwan returned with her purse, she says everything was still in it. Her cell phone, IDs, and that cash.
My rent was in that purse. My apartment was in that purse because a couple took a chance on me, giving me a place to live, just starting a job.
There's no better time to play a little armchair quarterback about what happened than after allowing a few days to pass and letting it all sink in.
He's never been in a fight that I'm aware of. Have you been in a fight before?
His best is
Watching the Saints game on Sunday, it would be like the coach knowing just what play to take Drew Brees out of the game so he wouldn't injure that thumb. Point being, this purse snatcher never stood a chance.
We were kind of joking the other day because it was like, that guy didn't know that Juwan could lift probably 700 to 800 pounds.
Relay, shot put.
Let's just say running and weightlifting are two of Juwan's medal-winning specialties as a Special Olympian, even competing last year at the U.S. Games in Seattle. His other,
my concern was always that someone would pick on him.
Proving to everyone he's capable and able.
You are my angel, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart. So grateful for you.
And that he should never be taken for granted.
I'm learning that he's not necessarily a weak person just because he has autism. He can take care of himself, and I that's something about him I did not know.
I love you.
We're taking a look back at some of the best of the good stuff from 2019 as we get ready for a whole new year of the good stuff here on Wednesday nights on KSLA News 12. You often may hear the term, that person has a lot of heart. Well, I know one young local teen who has more heart than most of us adults, even though her heart operates off batteries. This is a brand new beat. School is out and the sun is barely up, but there's no sleeping in for this dedicated group of high schoolers.
I want to earn it. I don't want it just to be handed to me.
Incoming Benton High School freshman Jamie Willis did just that. She earned one of roughly 24 spots on the Benton High School girls soccer team.
I was pretty happy about that. I'm not going to lie.
And so are the ones who know her best. Dad.
I knew she had something special.
Mom.
I'm so proud of her.
Her past coaches.
And in track in 7th and 8th grade, she could do 4 events. She could do everything.
Her doctor.
She's been exceptional. She's never really missed a beat.
Yes, her doctor.
Pun intended? No pun intended.
Who knows Jamie actually missed a lot of beats in her first 13 years on this earth.
9 years ago, when you're going through all this, did you ever think you'd find yourself sitting in bleachers watching her sprinting past you on the track?
Never. In fact, I remember thinking
this is the end.
Janelle Willis remembers Jamie's early years as difficult, painful, and confusing.
She was 5 going on 6 years old, and she had been dealing with problems with fatigue and allergies and frequent respiratory infections since birth.
I just kept thinking to myself, this has to be bigger than an allergen.
With Jamie struggling more and more, Mom admittingly became dogged in her pursuit for answers.
At the time, I was so beat down.
An answer she finally got at the end of one of Dr. Galen Sanders' faithful walks down his office hall, walks he's made for 40 years now. Dr. Sanders detected a heart murmur.
Her heart wasn't beating fast enough to pump the blood efficiently, so her chamber was filling with more blood and the heart was working harder to pump that blood out.
I was kind of relieved, even though horrified.
Jamie was eventually diagnosed with complete congenital heart block. Now, the best way to explain this for us non-medical experts, it's a complete interruption of all electrical communication between the top 2 chambers of her heart and the bottom 2 chambers. It's the way the heart pumps in and out the blood. So for the first 5 years of Jamie's young life, undetected, each half was pumping to a beat of its own.
Over time, it would have gotten worse. She would have become more fatigued and her heart rate would have dropped significantly and she would have possibly gone into heart failure.
A pacemaker was implanted. The beats still weren't perfectly synchronized, but the blood was pumping and Jamie's young heart was given new life. And contrary to what you might think, so was Jamie's love of sports.
I steadily started doing more sports and I worked out a lot.
Will she drop dead in the field? Like, I need to know.
Jamie's parents were assured she wouldn't, and her request to keep playing kept adding up.
You'll never see her use it as an excuse.
By middle school, that list got longer.
She's very competitive. She did very well in cross country in 6th grade. She's passing everybody up.
And by 7th and 8th grade, Jamie discovered 2 new loves, jumping hurdles and the long jump. Winning back-to-back district titles in both didn't surprise coaches. Coaches who were surprised to later learn Jamie was far outpacing the competition despite living with the help of a device designed to help pace the beats of her heart.
I was wowed. I mean, I just couldn't believe it. Somebody that had a pacemaker was running and doing everything that she was doing.
A lot of my coaches don't know just because I don't feel like telling them. And as long as I'm good at hurdles and long jump, they don't really need to know.
Then last May, it was back to the specialist and surgeons. It was time for Jamie's heart to get a brand new beat, an adult pacemaker.
May of 2018 is the first time Jamie Lynn Willis's heart beat correctly in her whole life.
The surgery was successful, and not 6 weeks later, the teen with more heart, figuratively and physically, than most kids her age, was back out on the track, competing in the long jump at the U.S. Junior Olympics, and back on the soccer field, taking hits that would send most mothers into cardiac arrest themselves.
Jamie Lynn is only 14, and every time that pacemaker is shocking her heart, it creates damage in her heart, shortening her lifespan.
So Janelle says she's not about to shorten her daughter's quality of life after Jamie was given new life with a brand new beat for her heart.
I went in there defeated, beat down, exhausted, terrified, and I left being heard. I don't care if it's jumping out of a plane. If that kid wants to ride dirt bikes or jump over hurdles and smoke every kid that comes out of this track, that is okay with me.
And speaking of the heart, you know, true love, that's where you feel it, right? Right there in the heart. Proof positive. 2 people fell in love, feel it right here, because that's all they can do is feel it, even though it's right there in front of their faces. 32-year-old Tony Jones has to be extremely careful.
In the print shop, we have like a big, huge guillotine cutter. That's what I work.
Just so he can leave work with the same 10 fingers he brought to work, including that ring finger. You see, Tony discovered more than just a paycheck here, not long after he started working inside this print shop some 8 years ago.
And I was just listening to a voice.
Oh, yes. One moment.
And the voice was sounding so good.
His wife of 6 years, Sigel, works the front desk, while Tony is just happy to be working. You ever feel like just giving up?
At one point I did. But I was like, nah, if I give up, it's too easy.
When Tony was in high school, that's when he says he first had trouble seeing a real future for himself. He admits he couldn't even see the chalkboard in class, much less follow along in class. Soon after, he decided to drop out of high school and go get a job. Any job.
I've been told no so many times. So
no, long before he started wearing these futuristic-looking glasses.
The more you go to the left, it get a little sharper.
But because he knew it was now happening to him, the real reason he couldn't see the chalkboard back in high school. I'm 10 feet from you. Would you be able to see me without any assistance at all?
Without these, you'll see a shadow.
An hereditary condition that was already taking away one of our greatest gifts, his sight. He kept applying for those jobs, but kept hearing no.
And you know, on applications, you have to put it or what kind of problems, disabilities, or anything you might have on there.
Until that one day, Tony finally landed a construction job, but only because he saw little gain in telling the truth.
I kind of left that part out on that one.
The days of feeling like he has to hide his vision problems just to get a job ended here at LAB Printing and Office Supply, which stands for Louisiana Association for the Blind Printing and Office Supply, a nonprofit designed to help the blind and visually impaired that also created a way to employ and train them as well by operating a print shop.
Okay, one moment.
Same place where Tony met his eventual wife, Sigel, who is totally blind. Where only Tony would think this is even remotely funny, and instead should be thanking his lucky stars.
How you knew that was me?
Because you know the one is going to do something.
That her love for him isn't blind.
He's a sweetie. He's really kind in his own way.
In relationships, laughter is always the best kind of medicine, even when there is no pill to cure what ails them both. But they have their lack of sight to thank for ever meeting in the first place, not long after Tony and Sigel began attending orientation and mobility classes at LAB's Low Vision Center next door.
Taking your cane and making contact with a surface in order to keep a straight line.
With blindfolds on, even before some lose their sight, like Tony, so they're prepared for the day it's gone for good.
He was shy at first, never talked.
It seems Sigel may have already had her ears on Tony long before he ever got up the nerve to ask her out. And Tony, a love for Sigel, long before he could even see her face.
We had got married.
So you married her without even really, you married a shadow.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
Fell in love and married someone he didn't need to see.
When I zoomed in, I was like, really?
A young lady he only saw clearly for the first time 2 years ago when he was given these bioptic glasses for work.
It was just amazing, man. When I seen her and I told her, I was like, you're just beautiful, you know.
Just goes to show you, true love isn't really all that hard to find, even when it is blind. I truly hope these stories have served as more than just entertainment, but as true inspiration to perhaps restore faith in the town where you live, or perhaps in complete strangers. I hope you have a great new year. If you'd ever like to reach out to me with a good stuff idea, Doug Warner at KSLA.com. Happy New Year. I'm Doug Warner.